Okay, before we begin this review, I just want to make this very clear. PBS is not shutting down. Yes, I'm well aware of all the stuff that happened. I know they got defunded by Trump. I know that CPR is shutting down, but that doesn't mean that PBS is completely out of the game. Federal funding only covered 15% of their budget. They might have to make some tough decisions, but that doesn't mean they're completely dead. With that being said, let's talk about Weather Hunters. Honestly, I had pretty high expectations for this show. In an interview with the creator, Al Roker, he said that he wanted the show to appeal to both kids and adults. And I think that's a pretty great sign. When people use the "it's just a kid show" excuse to defend bad shows, one thing they tend to forget is that parents often watch these shows along with their kids. So you have to make the experience at least tolerable for them too. So it's great to see a creator who actually cares about making their preschool show good. Not to mention, the show has a really nice art style that we don't see very often on PBS Kids. When was the last time we saw a CGI show on PBS Kids? I think it was Ready Jet Go. Does anyone even remember that show? I don't. So, does Weather Hunters live up to its potential? Let's find out. First off, once again, the art style is incredible. It's easily one of the best looking PBS Kids shows in their entire lineup. I said before that CGI is being overused, but that doesn't mean you can't do anything creative with it. When I first saw this show, I didn't even know that it was CGI. It's very stylized and it kind of looks like a comic book. It looks far better than Disney Junior, where all their shows have the same, generic, cookie-cutter art style. So, in terms of the visuals, this show is great. As for everything else, this is where I start to get a bit more critical. To be brutally honest, the first episode is pretty weak. I mean, it's not bad, and the characters do have strong personalities that are present here, but this episode is just kinda boring. There's hardly any conflict that happens, and even when there is a problem, it gets resolved in less than a minute. The first half is about the Weather Hunter family moving into their new house and discovering some family treasures, and the second half is just the kids learning about how wind works. Here's an idea: why not have it where an important family item gets lost in the wind, and the kids have to get it back? That way, you'd have an engaging story and you can still teach kids about the wind. Look, I get it. It's a PBS Kids show, and the focus is on education, but you still need a good story to carry the lesson. And without an engaging conflict, it's hard to get invested in the show. Writing first episodes is actually harder than one might think. You have to introduce everything, from the story, to the characters, to the theme, and the tone. But at the same time, you have to actually tell a story so the viewer doesn't get bored. And if the episode fails to do that, then unless the viewer is as patient as me, they're probably less likely to tune into any more episodes. To be fair, the episode does do a decent enough job at introducing the family, and they are very likable, but the episode seems to be more focused on establishing everything than having an engaging story. Alright, before we continue, let's talk about the characters. Lily is the main protagonist, and frankly, she's one of the least interesting characters, but that's only by comparison. Her curious nature is endearing, but she tends to fall a bit too close to the perfect kid category. I kinda wish she was like Curious George, where her curiosity gets her into trouble sometimes. But for what she is, she's fine. Benny is the younger brother. He's pretty cute, and has some funny lines here and there. Then we have Corky, the quirky and somewhat sassy older sister. She's one of my favorite characters in the show so far. Then there's the parents, Al and Dot. In most kid shows, the parents don't really matter. They're either painfully oblivious, or just bland background characters. But in this show, Al and Dot actually feel like characters. And they actively take part in most of the adventures. And their chemistry is genuinely fun to watch.
Oh man, how brilliant am I? I mean, come on. What? Nothing? No applause? Anybody? Dot?
I'm on the phone with the movers, hon. I promise I'll clap as soon as I get off.
Okay, so the first episode was kind of meh, but that's no big deal. There are plenty of good shows that started off with weak first episodes. Maybe it'll get better over time. So, does it manage? Well, kind of, I guess. More conflict does happen in these episodes, but they're so vague that they barely even count as conflicts. I'm not asking for major problems like an evil supervillain trying to take over the world, but there needs to be some sort of problem for the characters to resolve. Otherwise, it's pretty hard to get invested in anything. For example, in episode 2, Benny is worried that his flower isn't getting enough sunlight. This problem hardly ever gets mentioned throughout the episode, and then it gets magically resolved at the end. In episode 3, the family goes on a picnic. But oh no, it's gonna rain soon. What are we gonna do? Oh wait, the rain doesn't even start until the end of the episode, when the picnic is over. You see my point. I think this is one of the rare instances where the story is the main problem, and not the characters. Usually when I review a show, the story is decent, I can see how it could work. But then the characters turn out to be some of the most boring Mary Sues in all of fiction. But here, the characters are likable, but barely anything happens with them, leading to episodes that are charming, but nothing really sticks with you. Not to mention, the pacing is incredibly slow. I said before that preschool shows should move at a slow pace so kids can pick up on what's happening. But good lord, it takes far too long for something to happen. And I think that's because of this show's format. Most PBS Kids shows have two 11-minute segments with a 2-minute short sandwiched between. But Weather Hunters runs for a full 20 minutes. That's something you don't often see anymore, and there's a reason for that. Kids have really short attention spans, so unless the content is engaging enough for a full 20 minutes, it's gonna be hard to grab kids' attention for that long. The way I see it, this is made to be a more relaxing show. It's not meant to keep you on the edge of your seat, it's just a low-stimulation show with likable characters to teach kids about the weather. And, okay, I can see how that can work. There are plenty of low-stimulation shows that I enjoy, like Puffin' Rock. Except, that show actually has conflict, so there's that. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I harping on about conflicts? Because every good story needs one. They need an actual problem that's present throughout the whole episode. Even if it's something small, like not sharing a toy, having to wait in line, something that actually matters. Without that, the story just becomes a series of events rather than an engaging plot. But overall, despite my criticisms, I enjoyed Weather Hunters. It may not sound like it, but I genuinely did. The animation and characters do carry this one, and stops me from hating it. Admittedly, it is very relaxing, and it's the kind of show that I'd put on in the background while I make videos. And compared to most garbage we see in preschool shows nowadays, Weather Hunters is a breath of fresh air. Would I recommend this show? Well, it depends on your taste. Personally, I like shows with high-staked action, fast pacing, and tons of humor. But if you prefer calmer and relaxing shows, I recommend giving Weather Hunters a look. Anyways, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think of Weather Hunters. And until next time, party on.